Welcome to the Matt Phillips Podcast. I am Matt Phillips, your sales leadership coach, mental toughness expert, and founder of Matt Phillips Coaching. We help sales managers and leaders make more money, save time, and become kick-ass leaders of their sales teams. And that's what we're here to talk about on this podcast. We are here to give you the tools and tactics to build a well-oiled sales machine and teach you the mental toughness skills so you can show up confident, focused, emotionally in control, and ready to energize your team. It's time to talk sales leadership and mental toughness. Let's get into today's episode. All right. We are back for another podcast episode. It's Matt back with you. And gosh, I think I say on all of these that I'm just so excited, right? But I am excited to record this and be with you and get to spend a little time with you on your commute or at home or during your workout. Shout out to Fred, who's probably listening to this, because I know he actually listens to this during his workout, and Amy as well. So shout out to the two of you specifically. But I'm excited to be with you all and talk today about and introduce this concept of the work hard once mentality. This is something that was introduced by one of my coaches, a man named Danny Ballard. Love Danny to death. He's a good friend still to this day. And Danny and I spent a lot of time together. He was one of those coaches that was with me at the start. And he has seen this evolution over the past 11 and a half years. He was part of a couple of years ago of the helping me figure out the pricing and structure and strategy for one of the clients that led to like my biggest revenue ever. So he's seen the ups and downs and good and bad and all the things that come with starting and running a business and growing a business. And so I'm so thankful for Danny that he has been part of that. But Danny, one of the things that he introduced to me was this concept of work hard once mentality. And really, I'm going to share a few stories with you about how this has shown up, prior to Danny introducing this concept to me, but something that I found out always been focused on in my career and in my business today. And it's something that literally, this is about 2 weeks ago, we had one of our group coaching calls. We talked about this exact thing. I had a one-on-one coaching call with one of my executive clients. I had a sales 2 days ago, and we talked about this exact mentality, this approach. And I use slightly different words than Danny. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's something that as business leaders, if we start to understand, if we teach our people on our teams and those around us, all of our colleagues, how to do this, I mean, this is a massive game changer. It's a massive game changer, right? I say all the time about one of the other things I learned from one of my coaches, Jim Brogan, is ROT, return on time. It's all time. Where do we spend our time? Why are we spending our time there? And this work hard once mentality is a way to accelerate the results that we know we're going after anyway, but it's to help actually accelerate it and use our time well. And I always, liken this back to when I was working in the corporate world. I was actually working for a money transfer company, and I was in an operations role at the time. And when I look back at the way that we, attack processes in companies to this day, sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, they can be extremely slow, right? And if we want to change something, it can be extremely slow, or maybe it's fast, but it feels slow. And when we talk about this work hard once mentality, really the premise is how do we do more up front, right? How do we set aside time to get 95% of whatever we're working on like done, or we just have some few tweaks to make on the back end so that we can make that thing happen, whatever it is, a process, system integration, a sales process, whatever we're trying to do. How do we make the decision quicker? That's what the work hard once mentality is all about. And when Danny was explaining it, the first story that worked in my head was this one where I was working in operations. And at the time, there were, natural disasters would happen around the world, and a lot of money transfer companies will offer, when that happens, transactions for free to get money into that country, right? To help with just the individuals who've been impacted. And it's a fabulous thing. But the company I was working for, we had this issue on the website where we couldn't figure out how it would take us like a long time right? It was like a week and a half, 2 weeks, if I remember right, to change a price on the website to make it free, which when you're in a disaster scenario, like you don't have a week and a half to 2 weeks. Like you got to make it happen now, right? So there were some workarounds, but it was always this painful thing to make it happen. And every time a natural disaster happened, which you don't wish upon anyone, it was this massive scramble as a company to get the prices changed on the website to get money into the country to help. And finally, one day, I'm not the most patient person in the world. Like I fully admit I'm not the most patient person in the world. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, enough's enough. Like we have got to start figuring this out, and not Band-Aids, not, putting gum in the dam to keep the water back, but how do we fix this the right way? There's got to be a better way to do this. And so I actually took it upon myself to put a business case together for my boss, where I identified, here's the people that we need to fly into Denver. Here's how long we need to be together, which was going to be 3 days. And here's what we're trying to solve. Here's the cost associated with it. I've checked flights. I've checked hotel rooms. Like, we need to make this happen. And if I remember right, my business case was around $20,000 to $25,000 to make this happen. If I remember right, it's been a while. So I put it in front of my boss and I said, we need to solve this once and for good. And he made a few tweaks, I remember, of some of the people to be in the room, things like that. And he said, okay, let me talk to the one higher up he needed to go to. He came back probably 2 hours later, said, approved, done, set it up, let's go. So everybody flew to Denver. And I was so excited. I love whiteboards. I love sticky notes. I love defining processes. And that may sound so nerdy, but darn it, I love it. Because once we start, diving into some of those things, that's where we can make some massive changes, right? So I love the stuff, right? If you ever want to call me and just do a whiteboard session, call me, because I'll get the virtual whiteboard out, throw it behind me. I mean, we're gonna whiteboard till the cows come home, till we figure out like what's going on. So I love this stuff. Anyway, so I had my sticky notes and markers and all this stuff. And the goal of that session, those couple of days, was to map out literally the entire process from start to finish. So when something happened and we need to change a price, like immediately, what are the steps involved? Who are the players involved? What are the systems involved to make that happen? Now, some of you who aren't process people, I literally just put you to sleep. So wake up. Like, here we go. Stay with me. But so we're mapping this thing out, and it's day one, and people from all over the US are in town doing this thing in this conference room, and I'm sticky noting to my heart's desire. I must have had a grin from ear to ear. I was just a happy guy. We're about 2 hours into this session and talking about how systems interact, things like that. And I kid you not, this one woman kind of yells across the room to this other guy. She goes, wait a minute, wait. So she stops me. She goes, wait a minute, looks at this guy across the room and says, you do that? And he turns around and looks at her and he goes, wait a minute, you do that? And then they both look at me and say, we know how to fix it. And that one interaction took it from like a week and a half or 2 weeks to like 2 days, which still not good enough. We continue to work on it, but what a substantial shift, right? By getting in a room. And we continue to use the rest of those couple of days really for good to map this out and like to create some amazing things. But here's the deal. That is the work hard once mentality defined perfectly. It's taking things, and it might be a process or a system or a sales process, like anything, but it's taking those things that take 4 months and identifying those because they really should take 4 weeks, right? Or those things we have in front of us that take 4 weeks, but they really should take 4 hours. Like we really don't need to spread this out. And I see this over and over again in business where whether we're, again, launching a product, making a decision, like whatever it might be, things are taking way, way longer. And the work hard once mentality, again, is get the right people in the right room at the right time for the right length amount of time to get it 90, 95% done so we can move on and integrate or change or do whatever we need to do to impact the business, to impact people's careers. That's what it's all about. And at that money transfer company, as soon as Danny said that, my gosh, I was like, boom, that's the perfect example. And in a lot of conversations I have with people, there are processes or decisions that are like, it's like one of my friends used the phrases of like kicking the can down the road. We're kicking the can down the road. And at some point, somebody's got to pick up the can and pull people together and figure out what do we do with the can. And the quicker I've realized that we accelerate that and actually choose to spend the time now, the better off that we are. For all you sales managers and leaders out there, I wonder if you've ever thought the phrase, why in the world did I sign up for this? I know I have. And the reality is that leading a team of salespeople can be challenging, right? Just figuring out how to motivate each person and keep the pipeline full and just dealing with the pressure of delivering the month after month results that your company's requiring. And call me an optimist, but amidst the challenge, amidst sometimes the frustration, we have this opportunity in front of us to really impart our knowledge, right? And to leave that legacy on our team and just achieve next level results. And that's why today I want to personally invite you to our free masterclass training, where I'm going to share the exact secrets, the exact framework that I teach sales leaders around North America to help just take you to next level results for you and your team. And it's actually the exact framework that I taught one of my clients who over a 12-month period tripled organic revenue growth and increased margin by 30%. So I want to invite you to that masterclass. You can click the link below or head over to mattphillipscoaching.com/webinar, and can't wait to see you in the training. Speaking of time, right? I'm sure you've been on these too, where there's certain projects, whatever, and you're like, okay, we're going to get everybody together and, it's going to be an hour Zoom here. And then we're going to meet every week and do an hour Zoom. And then you get on these calls and the first half hour is recapping what you talked about last time. And you really only have like 30 minutes or less to actually, because then people drop off, right? People, oh, shoot, I got another meeting I got to roll to. So you're like, okay, we'll pick it up the next week. That's why these things are taking forever. So it takes a tremendous amount of time, right? Over a long period of time. And so the number one complaint I hear about this mentality is like, well, I don't have time. I don't have a 4-hour block. I don't have an 8-hour block. Well, as I like to say, you either take the time now or you're going to take quadruple the amount of time later. Your choice. What do you want to do? And I think sometimes that I've fallen in this trap where as well, maybe you or some people on your team do, where it's like, I can't take the time now. Right? I don't have the time now. Well, you don't have the time later, right? And what I often find is when we get in a room and dedicate focused time, like no distractions, you can crank through stuff so quickly. Like it's unbelievable. And I've seen this work with my clients, right? There's this one group, they're in the insurance industry, and they were talking about just kind of trying to formalize and standardize the processes for this one particular part of the business. And they were having call after call after call after call until we finally got to a point. And I said, at what point? I challenged them. I said, at what point are you going to kind of cut the you know what and get in a room and figure this out? Because we talked about this 6 months ago. And now 6 months later, you're still talking about the same thing. Like there's got to be a change because it starts to take your energy down. You start to get more frustrated with your colleagues. Your colleagues start questioning, like, is this ever going to get solved? Is it ever going to get done? And I believe the power of leadership is to be able to identify those things, pull the right people in the room and go. Because it always takes, I found, less time than we think. I mean, we could have ended that meeting at that money transfer company probably after the 2-hour mark and just been like, done, wash my hands of it, done and dusted, off we go. But it was setting aside the time. Otherwise, I'm telling you, it would have lingered on and on and on. And so my challenge for you today is like, what do you have on your plate or on your to-do list or in your priority list that you really need to have an honest conversation with yourself and look at it and say, you know what? We need to adopt this work hard once mentality. We need to accelerate the decision that we need to make. We need to accelerate this process improvement. We need to accelerate the discussions that we're having with this client to make the sale, whatever it is. We have to get to this point. And so we're going to choose to identify the right people, book a room, book the time, as long as it's needed to make this happen. It's something that seems so basic, but I know you have examples. I've got lots of examples of how, again, based on time, we don't want to carve out the time necessary. And I'm telling you, once you do, incredible things happen, right? Decisions can be made that seem scary, that seem overwhelming. But once you have those people, again, with that focus, my goodness, every little issue is brought up every discussion point is had to come to resolution. So it's either, do you want to have the pain now and carve out the time now, or do you want the pain later for a very long period of time? It's quite simple. And, when I say pain, it's really pain later. I think it's kind of fun now to pull people together and get hyper-focused. It's a huge, huge thing, this work hard once mentality. So I loved how, I look back at my career and these things line up, the process improvements, right? And I think it is honestly due to sometimes my lack of patience, because I know there's a better, more efficient, more effective way to do things. And, I am not, again, the most patient person. So I accelerate those just maybe more naturally because I get frustrated by it. And I do it very politically and, I do it the right way. Don't get me wrong. But it's time sometimes to call a spade and let's go. Let's fix this, right? And so I think it's one of my gifts, gifts that I was born with and I've continued to develop. But I wonder for you, where do you need to start spending a little more time and pull people together and just knock it out and get it done? I know there's all those things, and I want to encourage you to have those discussions with your colleagues, your boss, your team, whoever it might be, to make that happen, right? And I think too, if the one objection I hear is, well, we don't have money to bring people together like that. So Matt, oh my gosh, $20,000, $25,000, which is probably more expensive today to bring people together, depending on the number of people. You don't have to have it. You don't have to pull people together. You can do one of two things: integrate it into a meeting that's already happening coming up, or do it virtually. You got Zoom, you got all these tools that you can utilize to do it in a virtual environment. Is it a little more challenging in a virtual environment? Yes, it is. Yet, you can still accomplish amazing things with the technology that is with you, right? I always pull over my virtual whiteboard. And so for those of you watching this on YouTube, you can see it, but this is my little virtual whiteboard here. It's a 55-inch TV basically, but it's called a Vibe board, VIBE. I'll put the link in the show notes if you want to pick some of these up for your team. But I can literally, with this thing, have the entire team or people I'm coaching on this. And they can put this app on their phone or on a tablet, and they can actually write on this. We can whiteboard together virtually. That's why this Vibe board, for example, is so powerful. There's other like this out there. There's the Zoom whiteboards and all sorts of stuff you can leverage. But the key with this whole thing is knock it out and get it done. Huge shifts for you. So that's the work hard once mentality. That's why I'm so thankful, again, to be surrounded by great people in my life to help me guide and think through things differently. And the beauty is to put labels on it, to call it something so I know what it is other than just process improvement. So I hope you're able to take this today and implement it with your own team, with your organization, and teach it to those around you as well. Like I said before, it's a huge game changer. So with that said, please, I encourage you to share this episode with your colleagues, with your teammates. You can always joke in our group coaching calls that, make me the bad guy and be like, hey, this guy, Matt Phillips, introduced this thing to us where I wanted you to hear it. And I just think you'll enjoy it, but maybe it's something we should try. And it's not my idea. It's Matt Phillips' idea, right? Use it, do that. I hope you have fun with it. And please, again, share this, leave us a hopefully 5-star rating review on the podcast. But can't thank you enough for being part of the podcast, listening today. And hey, we'll see you on the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Thank you for joining us today on the Matt Phillips Podcast. If you are like us, we know that you are here to do great things, to become the sales leader that makes things happen and drives big time sales results. We know you have that big vision, and we are here to help get you where you want to go. We're here to help you develop that unstoppable, rock solid leadership skill set and help you train to master the one true differentiator: mental toughness. We would love to be part of your journey. So if you are ready, head over to mattphillipscoaching.com and check out the ways that we can help. As always, please share this episode and make sure you subscribe by clicking the button below. Thank you again. And now, go crush the day.